honestly, what so much of it comes down to is guilt and excuse making, right? And that's the thing. I was never willing to make an excuse. I never used having kids as an excuse to not get something done. I never used kids as an excuse not to be able to do what I needed to do, right? They became my reason why I needed to do the things I needed to do. And my kids are my why. Whatever it is you want to do, you can do. And there should never be an excuse on why you can't achieve what you want to achieve.
Hey, Difference Makers. Welcome to the Difference Maker Revolution podcast. And the four amigos are back today. We have Steve, Ronan, and Jeanine. And today, they are going to be talking about working parent hacks. Because I can talk nothing about this because I did not have kids. Thankfully.
You are a child,
but you are a child, Jonathan.
I am the child. Right.
And your dad has had to schedule around you for 30 years.
Imagine that. 33 this year. Go for it, Jeanine.
All the threes again, Joe.
All the threes. So anyways, yes. So this podcast, we're excited to bring this to you because most photographers, and I think most small business owners, you're not going to a corporate job where you clock in at 7 a.m, you clock out at 5 p.m, and your kids are at a daycare necessarily all day, right? And then you have your weekends free. You're a solopreneur, you're an entrepreneur, and so your life is your business, which means your kids are part of your business as well. And so many times when you're in this situation, while you might still have your child in a daycare or they're at school during the day, nights, weekends, when you're working, guess what? Your kids are there. and so many working parents, one, they struggle with many things, but you struggle with guilt because you struggle with, I'm working, so I'm not spending time with my child. And therefore, I have all this guilt building up that I'm not spending the quality time with my kids. You also have that they're there and they could be in the way, right? If you don't properly plan and properly get the task ready to go. And you also struggle with time management, right? And so many times you find that if you can't manage your time well and structure it well, then you end up not getting your tasks done. So then you get to the end of the day and you feel like you've done nothing good. You feel like you haven't spent time with your child well, and you feel like you haven't run your business well because you didn't have a plan in place to make sure it could all happen at the same time.
And Jeanine, Jonathan's a great example of like when you're like this, you don't want your kid ending up like that. Do you?
So he's a what not to do. That's so nice. Jonathan, I think you turned out perfectly well. That means your dad did a great job.
Thank you, Jeanine. Thank you, Ronan. Good job, Ronan.
Good job, Ronan.
I had nothing to do with it. Well, thanks, Susan.
Well, and I think this would be a great podcast because Steve had to do this with his kids. You had to do this with yours, Ronan, and I had to do it with mine. And we have perspectives of dads and moms, right? So oftentimes I think people just assume this is a working mom issue, but it's a working dad issue too. It's a parents in general, right? Because we all want to spend this time with our kids and also want to have a successful business.
Yeah. It's the
And how do you make the
non-salary
two?
and wage earner, because there's that expectation that we can just drop at any time and be there.
Right. Yes.
Like, you know, if one of the kids is sick, then the expectation is that we're available because we're home doing nothing.
Right. We don't have a real job. Yes. We don't have a real job. I get that from my kids' school a lot, right? They'll always say, well, can't you do this? Or even my own mother, right? If she needs something, she will call me for something. Well, can't you just leave the studio? I'm like, you don't call my brother or my sister because in your mind they have a real job and they can't leave. I have a real job too. Yes.
But you're the boss, Jeanine, so you call the shots. That's what it is.
That's what it is, right? That's what it is. So what we wanted to share with you guys today is some hacks, some ideas that we've all experienced in our lives. And I'll start us off because, you know, it varies on your age of your kids, clearly, right? Like if you have a baby versus a toddler versus a school-age child. And so one of the things that I have found that works is understanding, no matter what, and this goes with Jonathan too at the age of 33, understanding your children's natural rhythms and don't fight it. And this is something I have, since my kids were little, I have understood and I adjust for it, right? So when James was a baby and his nap times, I knew when his nap times were, And that's when I scheduled my creative work, my thinking time to be
How
done while
great is
he was
nap
sleeping
time?
during nap time. Because other things could be done while he was awake. And Ronan, I know you do this too. You schedule all your thinking time when Jonathan's taking his nap.
Absolutely. Still do. It's 30 minutes away.
During his siesta, especially when he was in Spain, I'm sure he was siestaing all the time. So no, depending on when your kids are napping. So for the younger kids that are still napping, scheduling your creative time. Don't fight it. Don't try and schedule hard thinking tasks when they're awake and wanting to play. Because then you're just going to get frustrated and you're going to have the guilt because you're going to be pushing them aside and it's not going to work. And as they start to get gradually older, you're going to know their schedule. Like James has time where he can sit and read or play. And then he has times where he needs to get outside and run and be on a playground and just get some energy out. And so even now at the age of 8/9, we do the same thing, right? And so I plan my day when he's here around what's naturally good for him. And then I don't get frustrated. He doesn't get frustrated. And we can gel together that way.
Don't know about you, Steve, but what I loved most about it was the free staff.
Well, I don't want to admit to that.
Free? What are you talking about, Ryan? When they work in the business, then you can contribute to their Roth IRA.
I called it
Save for the future.
Future training for their future selves that they never had to pay for themselves.
Yeah, there you
It
go.
was training, right? Not so much free staff. We're not into slave labor here, Jono. Are we?
I am the greatest floor sweeper ever seen. Nobody sweeps the floor as well as I do.
Well, and James loves to vacuum, and see, chores are fun. Setting up, so now he's at an age, and actually he's been able to do this for about 2 years, setting up the studio in the morning. So when he comes in with me, he sets up the studio. So he puts the signs out front, he puts the pillow on the chair out front, he moves the little table out front, he turns all the lights on. So he has his own morning checklist that I send him off to do. You know, does it really save me any time? No, but it gets him involved, right? And it does save me a little bit of time, if we get in before the other girls do. And it makes him feel a part of the business. And that, I feel, is very important, to make your kids feel parts of what you're doing as an entrepreneur and not as a side, not that they're on the side. I grew up in a family business. My parents ran their own business my whole life. And so I got tasked. I did get those fun tasks. This back in the day of the checks, right? When people actually wrote checks and got their checks back at the end of the month from the bank. My mom told me it was critical, mission critical, Ronan, that the checks were put in numerical order, because that's how she knew how to balance her bank account. It had to be done for the IRS. So I thought I was doing this mission critical task of helping my mom sort all the checks numerically. Now I know it really didn't matter. But I thought it was important. I had this very important task. And I remember this as a kid, sitting on the floor with all of these checks out on the floor and getting them in the right number order. So it was teaching me math too, right? But it was they were teaching me math. But I felt important. I felt that my parents gave me a critical task that they needed done for their business. And so it made me feel good as a kid, and that I knew what needed to be done. So I like to find those tasks for my kids too. Stuffing envelopes is great age appropriate tasks. We're getting ready to do our duck mailing, like all of our thank you notes. And so we'll print the cards and James will stuff the envelopes. And he's now at an age he can put a stamp on straight too. He can stuff them, seal them, and put on a straight stamp. I don't know if I would task that with a much younger child because I'm very picky about my stamps being straight. But James could do a straight stamp. So, we can do that. I'm not going to
ask, is that a compulsory thing that a stamp is straight?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We don't do crooked compulsory stamps. Thing, right?
No crooked stamps. So age appropriate tasks, and it makes them feel included. So when your kids are there during the times that they have to be there, you can include them in your tasks. I like that. And then you can pay contributions towards the Roth IRA for tax-free earning, which I like too.
But they're actually working, which is great. They're actually earning that income, right?
They're earning that income. Yeah. If you have your kids in any photographs for studio samples, they can be models and you can pay towards their Roth IRA. See your accountant about it because it is legal and it's amazing and it's a great way to build money for them for the future.
So stuffing envelopes in my house became a competition because I've got 3 children which are really close together. And so it was Olivia's job to count out 20 envelopes and make a stack of 20, and she would make 3 stacks of 20. And then, the kids would then do a competition of, stuffing the envelope, peeling off the back and sealing the envelope and getting it ready. And then there were prizes for each, lot of 20 that whoever won that round. It was like a round of cards, I suppose.
That's awesome. A little
really,
competition. It's always good.
Yeah. And so we just use tokens. I think from the Monopoly board, they would just get tokens. And then whoever got the most tokens, then, they would cash them in. Almost sounds a bit like casino. Now that not great, right?
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love it.
So what you're saying, or what I'm learning from you guys, is that when you've got children, you have them in the business, you bring them in, you have to look after them, gamify the tasks.
Yeah, gamify.
Yep. Gamify the tasks. We another task that James does, we make goodie bags for our clients, like little gift bags that for our first birthday sessions and different types of sessions. And so that's another great thing that most kids over the age of 4 can open up a bunch of bags and then you have your 4 boxes of things that go in each one, and they can pick one out and put them in each one, right? So it's another great age appropriate task that you can do from like the age of 4 on up. And then you give little prizes. And so the other thing that I have found that kind of leads into that with gamifying, Ronan, is time. And so what I don't do it now necessarily as much with James because we're on longer times, but when he was younger, I would on my phone set a timer. I'd be like, okay, mommy's going to set a timer for 25 minutes. And this is where the age appropriateness comes in, right? The younger the child, the shorter the time. But I would set a timer like, all right, mommy's setting a time for 25 minutes. Here is your stack of whatever it was, coloring books, Legos, Play-Doh, pipe cleaners, whatever it was that was a touchy-feely thing for him to do. For 25 minutes until his timer goes off, you're doing this task, mommy is doing her task. And that would create more thinking, creative time for me. So that's where I would go do something that I had to do. And when that timer went off, he stopped his, I stopped mine, and we did something together.
Oh, Jeanine, I did the same. It's amazing how many things we did the same, but mine was for a completely different reason. I set my timer so I wouldn't forget that they were there.
I thought you were going to say so you could take your nap.
The timer so that I wouldn't forget that they were, because you get so involved in what you're doing.
You do.
And so engrossed in what you're doing that 3 hours could go past and I haven't checked on them. So my timer was there more, the purpose was for me not to forget, but it pretty much ran the same. Your purpose was different.
Yeah, well, and what's great about it, Ronan, is when you do that, you know how like we've been tracking time in with the difference makers this past month, and everybody, one of the things in common everyone had is when you set a specific amount of time and you only have a short amount of time, you get a lot more done. So let me tell you, on those days when James was here, I actually got an incredible amount done because I'm like, I only have 25 minutes. I better get it all done before he comes in here, right? Before that timer goes off. And so you don't do anything distracted. You don't get distracted by an email or distracted by social media because you know you have 25 minutes to get this task done, and you get it done.
So, Jeanine, quick question for you. So, my mother says that when it was either day 5 or day 6, because they used to nearly spend a week in hospital, like when they had their child, right? So she said it was either day 5, 6, or 7, whichever that is, the first week anyway, that she got out of hospital, was bringing me, had to go to work because it was a small family business to do the wages that week. So she said, like, I'd no hope. Like, I was in the business in my first week on this planet. So the question I want to ask you about that is, so, how did you, because if I have a corporate job, right, I might get maternity leave and paternity leave and all that. So, when you were having your children, how did you manage that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, first of all, I love the Irish that you guys get a full week in the hospital. We get 48 hours, and that's only if you have a C-section. If you deliver naturally, you get 24 hours.
I'm going back 56. I'm going back 56 years. We like that now too. I'm going back 56 years.
Anyway, so I had C-sections with both my kids. So technically for 2 weeks, you're not supposed to lift anything. You can't drive. things like that, right? But guess what? You can still work at your computer. And so I gave myself, so I scheduled for both of my kids, Aaron, and they're both in different stages of my business too, right? So Aaron was at the very beginning and James came after we were pretty well established. So, but both times, one, I was networking in the hospital, which I think you guys will find funny. So like the women that delivered with me, you strike up conversations and I actually got business from the other moms that were delivering to do their newborn photos. But anyways,
why am I shocked?
I know, right?
Why
I was
am
like,
I
what do you do? What do you do? Oh, I'm a photographer. Would you like the photos in the hospital suck? Why don't you bring your kid to the studio? But I did plan for 2 weeks my schedule so that I wouldn't have to be in the studio photographing because I knew it would be painful. I knew it would be hard. And I wanted to have that time to bond with my kids and to spend that time. But then, I mean, we run businesses. So there's no way I could be away from the business for more than that. Now that I have more employees, I probably could have taken more time away. But back then there was no way. So James came, I actually set up next to my desk a little one of those pack and plays. And so basically I didn't work as much, but he was here with me in my office. Right. And that when they're newborns, actually, it's the perfect time to work because they sleep a lot. So he would sleep most of the day and I would work. Or he was nursing. And that's when I did all my social media. When he was nursing, that's when I was making all my social media posts. Right. So I figured out how to do both. And I had him with me. So after I came back into the studio at 2 weeks, was pretty half schedule for about another 2 weeks. And then he was just with me. He was with both Aaron and James stayed with me in the studio until they were almost 2. And then once they start walking, it becomes a bigger challenge. When you can corral them into a pack and play, it's much easier. So up until a year, honestly, it was easy breezy. Right. I did a lot of, like I said, scheduled around their nap times or whatever the case may be. And like if I had a session and he was awake or Aaron was awake, my office assistant would watch them while I photographed the session. You kind of have to have a little help. It takes a village. Once they start walking, though, woo-wee, that's where it gets to be a bit of a challenge. So from like 1 to 2 until I was comfortable putting my kids in daycare at 2. Some people will do it younger. And this is where you have to be okay with what's okay for you. And you got to remove that guilt. You know, if you have to put your kid into a daycare younger than 2, okay, do it. You know, and don't feel guilty about it. They're getting to play with other children. And that's when I, like when James was 2 and it was just too much. And I felt like I was having to push him away too much. I'm like, he needs to go to school. He can play with other kids during the day. He's going to have fun. I'm going to get work done. And then we can come back together at 4:00. And what I did during those years was I took Monday off. So I didn't work on Mondays. And I didn't send him to daycare on Mondays. And that was our day together because I worked Saturdays, you know? So that way I had Sunday and Monday to be with him full day. And then the rest of the week was work. But I know I've talked with other working moms and working dads where they do like the half daycare programs. So like 3 mornings a week and they phase in that way. Then they can have that concentrated work time. And again, in the grand scheme of things, when you think about it and you put your perspective on it, and I can do that now as both kids are older, it's only for like the first 3 years of their life and so 3 years in the whole span of your adulthood and business life to run things at a little bit of a slower speed is okay. It really is. And you'll be fine.
Did you have the 1 to 2 year old prison? You know, the playpens?
Yes. I did.
Yes.
We had the gates and I put gates up in front of the server because I had this big fear that like he would go and trip and spill his sippy milk or whatever on the server and like it would fry everybody's file. So I actually put like a whole dog fence up around the whole computer server area when he was young because I didn't want him to go push a button and turn things off or whatever the case may be. So yeah, there was gates up all over the studio when he was walking.
So funny.
It is funny. But this is, you know, we've heard it a couple of times when parents of young kids on our coaching meetings have asked questions. And I think, honestly, what so much of it comes down to is guilt and excuse making, right? And that's the thing. I was never willing to make an excuse. I never used having kids as an excuse to not get something done. I never used kids as an excuse not to be able to do what I needed to do, right? They became my reason why I needed to do the things I needed to do. And my kids are my why. I want my kids to see that you can, like, especially for Aaron, you can be a woman and do whatever the heck you want. You can have kids. You can run a business. You can, get a higher education. Whatever it is you want to do, you can do. And there should never be an excuse on why you can't achieve what you want to achieve. And so oftentimes I think people use kids. Oh, I'm a working parent. I can't do that. Why not? Figure out how to make it happen. I'm a working parent. I can't do extra education. Why? Do it after they go to sleep. I wrote a book at 4 a.m. because when else was I going to do it, right? So I woke up early and wrote for 2 hours every day. When James was a baby, he was a newborn, and Aaron was 9, right? So I didn't say I'm not going to write the book. It was my goal. I wanted to write this book. So I got up and I did it when they were sleeping, right? So there's always time. You just got to figure out what makes it important and not use your family and your children as an excuse, and flip it and make them your why.
I used to really worry about when I was with clients being interrupted, or on the phone with clients being interrupted. And it was my issue. It was never the client's issue. Like, if they were interrupted, if they did come in and they were talking to me, it actually made it more real for the clients. And it made them feel like, I suppose I was just like them and understood them more. So what I was in fear of actually worked to my favor every time they did come in and want attention. And sometimes you have to call somebody back, and they respect you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's okay. Going back to Jono's comment about, you're the best sweeper or the best broom man, or what did you say, Jono? Something
the best sweeper.
The best...
it's best sweeper of floors or something like that, yeah.
Sweeper of floors. It's amazing, when I ran my business and we would get work experience kids. So they're looking for work experience, and they would apply, they would come in, and often you would sort of, give them a broom and get them to clean up. It's amazing how many kids have never, ever been introduced to a broom and have no idea what to do with it. And so good on you, Ronan, for it's a life skill. And I think, being around the business and helping the kids get life skills early, I just couldn't wait for some of these kids to not be part of the business. And you tend to know the kids that whose parents own their own business or are working in are entrepreneurial, because it's amazing how many more skills, life skills, that those kids have. So I mean, the whole point of having a work experience person is for them to get some experience and learn something. But the difference between the two is insane.
If you have a teenager, speaking from a teenager's perspective of this.
You are still a teenager, Jonathan, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still a teenager at 32. But when I was like 13, 14, 15, I remember that for the summer when we were off school, I had to come into the business and I had to work on, we make the photo frames, like the mounts, the mats, the cardboard mats. And my job was to put the photographer company logo on the mats using a machine. And I remember it was, for me at the time as a 12, 13, 14-year-old, the most mind-numbing thing ever, because all of my friends were at the tennis club playing tennis, and I wanted to be at the tennis club playing tennis. But I had to work like 3 out of 5 days of the week or something. There was some agreement. And at the time, it was like awful. But it taught me, looking back, it taught me a really important lesson. And the lesson it taught me was that, if you really want something, you have to sometimes you have to do the boring work to get what you really want in life. And a lot of people get turned on by doing the exciting stuff. And as soon as something becomes repetitive or boring or, difficult, they give up. And the reality is, to be a success, whether it's in business or as an athlete or anything, to be successful at anything in life, the reality is you have to do the boring, shitty, hard stuff sometimes
Jonathan
to
stole
be
our one bad
successful.
word.
I used one of the rest words, my bad. But that was a life lesson, and at the time I didn't realize I was learning that. But looking back, I realized I learned that.
You had a great job, Jono.
That was an important job, and it had to
my-
be straight. You couldn't get that sucker crooked.
Oh, the stories about getting it straight. I was obsessed about keeping the logo straight on the mounts. I used to drive one of Thomas. I used to drive him mad. I was like, I think this is like 1 millimeter off. Is it? He's like, it's good.
So was he?
You should want straight stamps on your envelopes too, Jonathan.
There you go.
1 mount per hour, Ronan. Is that where he was at?
I think so. Probably, Steve. I don't remember exactly the.
Jono, my parents owned a cafe, and my childhood holiday job was food prep, and so when a bag of onions arrived, guess who had to peel the onions
and chop them?
Which I was so grateful for. Peeling a whole. It's a 10-kilo bag. You'd peel one or two of those. And it did. You had to have some resilience and you had to have some determination. But I was happy to peel the bag because I didn't want to be the one slicing the onions. Because slicing the onions, man, that was, you couldn't even be in the room when that was happening. So I got to be outside peeling onions. It was, usually beautiful weather. Yeah, so I don't know. I think I'd be putting stamps on block mounts any day.
When I was a teenager, I can still smell red wax today without being near red wax. So when I was a teenager, we had a contract. Dad had a contract for doing the tickets for the football games, right? And of course, for the big final day, right, we used to produce these tickets. It'd be foiled and this is the day before technology, right? And gone back 40 years ago, right? So they were all printed tickets with foil and embossed and for security reasons, so they couldn't be copied and all that, right? But we used to always get these calls after they delivered the tickets to say some of the tickets are missing. And of course, they'd point the finger at us, right? That, we had taken some of these tickets or whatever. So Dad came up with this idea then, right? Well, what we're going to have to do now is, and Ronan, this is going to be your job. I was in school, right? This is going to be your job. So a bit like your checks, Jeanine, right? So every section went from AA1 to 249. And then the next one was AB1 to 358, right? But they were all printed together. So you would have your AA tickets all the way out, and you had to take those ones away that there was no seats for. You had to double check them and all that stuff. So that's the way the job used to be. So then when this security thing happened, right, I had to take the tickets. So I do that. Then I would wrap them in brown paper. And then I had to tie string around the brown paper. And then I had to seal the knot with red wax. There was never, ever an issue after that with tickets going missing. It wasn't happening in our place at all. It was happening in the organization. Will remain nameless. But
so you said
I can still smell
the red wax. Does
it was red
smell
wax
differently, or yellow wax smell?
Well, I don't know. I was only using red wax, but I can still, because I used to have this little burner thing, to stick a wax, and you have to burn it over the nut. And of course, the smoke's coming off the wax, so I can still smell red wax today.
That's hilarious.
From when I was 15 or 16 doing that job during the summer.
Well, good, Ronan, because that leads into my other good hack for a parent. And this is funny because while you were a teenager and smelling red wax, it was a tactile, functional job that you had at the studio, which is great for teenagers, but I wouldn't recommend hot wax for a child. But one of the other, if you have young kids, having tactile, different, playful things that they have at your business that they don't have at home is critical. And I have found that, and I had gotten that tip from another working parent when my kids were young and said, you need to do this Bring in things that you don't have little stations at the studio that you don't have at your home. And that way they look forward to coming and playing with that specific item that they don't have at home. So for me, it was Play-Doh. So at home, we don't have Play-Doh, right? And so I'm sure my kids might in the future someday remember coming to the studio and smelling Play-Doh, Ronan, because that has a very distinct smell as well. But they only got to play with Play-Doh at the studio. And we had I had a little table that they got to use, and I had all the Play-Doh set up. And so one of the time blocks that we would set the timer on was them getting to play with Play-Doh. And they loved it because I knew they couldn't have Play-Doh at home. So that's another really good hack for a working parent, to have something specific at your place of business that they don't have anywhere else. That way they look forward to it and they're not bored with it by the time they come. So anyways, that reminded me of that one. The smell of Play-Doh. But Play-Doh worked really well. And pipe cleaners were another one. Like you can go to the craft store and get like all those like silly little craft supplies, like pipe cleaners and googly eyes and things like that, and making another, like I would have a little tote of all that stuff. And then the other fun one too was my kids loved coming for the lab boxes, because you can make rocket ships and forts, and the amount of things you can make from giant lab boxes and or the smaller lab boxes and stacking them, you can make forts. And they could be very creative. So if the studio wasn't occupied, like if it was a day we weren't shooting, it was an office day, I let them take over the studio, get all the lab boxes out of the production room, and build whatever the heck they wanted. And James still does that at 9, and he finds it fascinating. He'll come in like, where are all the boxes,
Did you love it when the parents would see them do that and they're like, oh, can I take some of those boxes? It's like, oh, please.
Please take a box.
Take some.
Please take some boxes. Yeah, I've had many social media posts, and it's funny, Steve, because you're right. Like, I actually love that we're able to relate to our clients this way. Because like when James comes to the studio and builds blanket forts with he'll build them from the studio backgrounds and blankets and boxes. And I'll post, I haven't done it in a while, but last year I usually do it over the summer. I posted like, James built another blanket fort at the studio today. And like and I posted on the studio page, right? And like our clients see it and they interact with it, and it's fun and it's real. And you're a fellow working parent, because all of our clients, my ideal client avatar is a working parent. So it's, the same thing. And so, yeah, that tactile, being able to do something that's different and fun, and they can't do it at home, is a way to make them not dread coming to work with you, but look forward to it.
So, Jono, we've just done this great course on time management, that Jeanine and Steve put together, and it was amazing. You can see how organized Jeanine is. But we've gone overtime on this podcast, Johnson. So you better tell everybody what they need to do next and how they can learn all these great skills on marketing and sales and business and finance and
time management.
Children management.
Yeah, children management.
Well, Ronan, not only do you get real-world practical experience with managing a real-life 32-year-old kid when you join the Inner Circle, but yes, you get access to all of these incredible skills with the training courses that the mentor team have developed, with the community, with the coaching calls, and really any skill you ever need to run a successful photography business, you can access and learn inside the Difference Maker Inner Circle. So all you have to do to join this incredible community of Difference Maker photographers is click the link below this video, sign up today, and we're super excited to welcome you into a family of thriving Difference Maker photographers. We'll see you inside.
Bye, everyone.